Yeah, I think there's a lot when it comes to conversations with families. Yes, the child is going to school. They're the one going to college, not mom and dad. However, we also have the conversation of the financial because, as we know, college is not cheap, depending on where students are looking. And I think one of the things is that, is lacrosse an option? Is sport an option?
You're listening to the First City Lacrosse Podcast, the second greatest lacrosse podcast on the planet. Buckle up, strap your helmet on, and let's go.
And welcome back, everybody, to First City Lacrosse. I am your host, Coach Jon, and this is First City Lacrosse, the second greatest lacrosse podcast on the planet. And I've got a very special guest with me today. I've got Coach Ruth Morrongiello from Southside High School lacrosse. Ruth, Coach, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. This is going to be a lot of fun for us because you are in sort of a unique position wherein you're experienced in the girls' game and the boys' game, and we're going to jump right into it for the most part. But we're going to talk about how the girls' game is growing, some of the challenges associated with it, and kind of where you're at now and what you hope to see. But before we get into any of that, can you take a minute or two and tell everybody about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a native of New York. So I grew up on Long Island in North Shore, Huntington area. We breed lacrosse children there. I have been playing lacrosse since third grade. I actually started with a boys stick. I was really nervous to try a girl stick. But then after that, I ended up getting a girl stick and got involved in lacrosse. Played that throughout high school. Ended up playing travel. I started blowing up a little bit more on Long Island with girls travel, and then ended up playing at the collegiate level, Division III. Ended up playing at Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania, small liberal arts college. Loved it. Great experience there, and I then proceeded to go into the workforce as an admissions rep. So I worked in college admissions for pretty much a total of 9 years. Various institutions. I actually helped some of the colleges do some recruiting for the girls lacrosse programs. And then as well as also for myself in admissions, kept doing that, and then decided I wanted to switch sides of the desk and be a school counselor because I love the college process and I love telling families about the opportunities that are out there when it comes to the college piece because there's a lot of information, and then decided to be a school counselor, and I love the mental health part as well too. So did that for another 5 years, worked at an independent school, and helped coach the as an assistant coach for the girls lacrosse there. And then I came down here to Louisiana, and Coach Casey McDonald decided to say, hey, Ruth, you got some interest in lacrosse. I actually reached out through the Hurricanes first. And then from there, I proceeded to then be the assistant coach last year, being our first program at Youngsville for a public school, building up the lacrosse ever for public school, which is so exciting. And at the same time, we always, for me, it was a new adventure as well, just understanding men's lacrosse. I grew up with it. My brother played it, so I knew basic rules, but I was learning with the team when it came down to rules because I always had the women's mentality and our rules and us being a little bit more complicated, or what they say. For some of the young guys, they're like, "You are the whistle blows all the time." So that's where kind of I'm at. And I actually just recently left school counseling, and now I started my business. So I'm founder of Ascend Collegiate Consulting Group, and this is a pretty much all the combinations of college admissions to school counseling. I now run my own business where I help high school students and families figure out kind of the planning after high school, during high school, looking at transcripts, prepping for ECT, SET if they're doing that, but really guiding them through all the noise that I think everything happens with college, how to navigate, where to begin. So I'm kind of like the filter person that helps out with that. So I'm really excited, and I have some really great clients, and I've worked independently with some families throughout my years. And I thought this would be the time. So here I am as a founder and officially my own business person.
Well, Wow. First of all, what a resume. And also congratulations for being able to launch your business. It's not an easy time to be in business, I think, as an independent
Mhm.
business owner. And you found your niche, you found something you're really, really good at, and you found a way to make it work. And I really love that you've agreed to do this podcast, because the whole point of this show is to, well, it's twofold. One is to highlight our players, highlight the coaches and the teams and the abilities of all of our lacrosse representatives in the Gulf Coast area, because they oftentimes they don't get that recognition outside of the Gulf States region. But more importantly, we want to help our players and our parents understand that there is life after high school, that there is a lacrosse future for them. And I think a lot of these players who are so talented, who think, well, I can never play at that level,
Mhm.
they're very mistaken. They actually could. And the fact that you understand like the technical aspect of the game, plus you understand the admissions aspect of
Yeah.
college now, with all that experience, that's huge. I mean, that's 90% of the battle, is making sure that your grades and your transcripts and your application package, for lack of a better
Yeah.
phrase, is all synced up and looking good. So
Mhm.
um, that's awesome. Um, Real quick, a couple of rapid fires I start every guest off with. Do you have a book you're reading right now that we should be looking at?
Well, I am pretty much my books are pretty much all the admissions areas. So for me, I've been doing a lot of just research on just leadership, as well as also some books in the aspect of college admissions. I actually have one of my favorite books right now
Let's see
that
it.
I actually it's a sports one, but I know this. I should probably put that out. But the Brave Athlete. This is actually one of I'm doing the audiobook when I was traveling, solo
Uh-huh.
traveling to the Zion National Park. And I think it's just great highlights. We did a leadership program over the summer, and I took some of the ideas in there and just the mind mentality that our athletes have. And I think it's
Mm.
always just so great to be able to do a little professional development, but also kind of gauging, the mindsets
Yeah.
of
And
athletes.
just for the people who are listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube, the book was titled, what is it? The Brave
A
Athlete.
brave, yeah.
It's entitled The Brave Athlete, Calm the F Down. And you can I appreciate you vlogging that. I will say this, some of the platforms will highlight the content as explicit if we go there within the
Hmm.
first 3 or 4 minutes. So the fact that we're 7 minutes in is we're probably safe. But
But
definitely
I
check
tried
that
to
one out.
cover it.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I appreciate you sharing that. And honestly, it's going to drive you. I guarantee you the sales on Amazon are going to peak when this episode
And
airs.
it's a
You're going to see
great
a
book,
bunch of
by the
them.
way.
Yeah.
It really is. It breaks
Well,
down really great mentality stuff. So,
I'm going to have to check
um,
it out now too.
yeah.
So the Brave Athlete, calm the F down. All right. You have a favorite podcast show or YouTube channel that you're currently following or watching? You don't have time for that probably.
It's one of those things that I have never really jumped on the wagon for podcasts. Unfortunately, I know I have tons of girlfriends that are into the murder ones, and then also, I mean, for you, I mean, I've slowly started turning because Coach Casey's been like, you need to follow John. And so I was like, so I do listen to you for to be honest. And
Oh, cool. Well, I
but
appreciate
for
that.
but in general though too, I am more into like I'll look up YouTube stuff, but that's kind of just for lacrosse related, finding drills honestly. But overall, it's my social media is kind of the go-to for me.
Mm, yeah. I I will say to other coaches and to players and parents honestly that I don't really care where the advice comes from,
Hmm.
where the play comes from, whether you're the most experienced coach out there or the least experienced. If it's good advice, I'm gonna
Yeah.
take it. Like, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. Now, I'm probably going to give a little more leverage to someone with a lot more experience, but it's just that's the thing. I'm like you. It's like, hey, if it's good information, I'm gonna try to take it.
Yeah.
All right, last one. You got a favorite player, pro or college? Favorite coach you try to model? Anything like that?
Gosh, I think now that the WL is on, it's one of my biggest things. I think that's always been a dream to have women's pro.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with men. being the pro teams. Long Island had their club teams for the adults. I remember the Lizards. So to me, when I was thinking of when WLL branched out, that's been like my go-to, just watching all the young athletes. I think sometimes I'm like, I think Coach Geeksy once in a while, he's like, you could still play, Ruth. You're still able to. And I'm like, I think I'm a little out there on age, but regardless is that watching that, but I think my biggest is watching my alma mater. My biggest highlight has been Coach Kristen Stuckel she was my at Muhlenberg. She's still there. Many years later, just ended up winning, or she actually just got her 200th win of a seasons. And I
Wow.
think that's really awesome. She's been such a mentor. I've called her when I've had issues with, figuring out how to handle certain drills or just mentality within a girls team. She's always been a text away. So to me, she's always been a great positive role model, plus also just as a coach. She actually used to play at Gettysburg College, then ended up going to Muhlenberg and coach there, and she's still going with some
I love
really
that.
great titles, I'll tell you that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny how our coaches never really stop being coaches, even as we grow into
Mhm.
adulthood and we take on the role of coach or mentor or parent. The ones that coached us and taught us, we still rely on them. So that makes a lot of sense to me. My dad was always my coach for most of the sports I had growing up, and
Mhm.
I didn't always appreciate him when I was younger, but I can definitely see his influence as I began coaching, my own
Mhm.
kids and then others through the years. So that's awesome. All right, so we already hit your bio a little bit. I think we'll probably we'll hear more about that through some of the things, but I really want to get into the lacrosse stuff. That's why we're here. And in an effort not to waste your time or anybody else's, let's talk about the girls game, how it is to sort of develop the girls game and grow it in your area, especially in Louisiana. You said you started with the Acadiana Hurricanes, which is of course a youth rec development team, and so you started there. And what kind of things have you seen? What kind of obstacles have been kind of that you've had to overcome, or just some things that have popped up that maybe you weren't expecting, some things that in order to build that girls game.
Yeah, actually, interesting enough is that I didn't know Louisiana had lacrosse, honestly. That was something I knew. LSU had the girls club team.
Mm-hmm.
That was just something I knew just generally. But I actually ran into someone at a local restaurant and started talking about lacrosse. And they're like, there's a program, by the way, that you can coach. And that was the Hurricane. So I reached out. And from there, that like kind of was the moment of like, whoo, wow, there is lacrosse here. But it was on the side of men. And for me as a female coming in, I was like, well, let me just see what we can do, because a lot of the foundational pieces of women's and men's lacrosse kind of coincide when it comes to just fundamentals. When we catch and throw, when we're talking about footing, defense, offense, midfield. So for me, it was one of those things where I'm like, hey, I love the sport. I can teach. I ended up helping coach the littles. So those were like the fifth graders, and then also the fourth graders. And those are just basic information, like just foundational pieces of just what lacrosse is all about. So I really enjoyed that. And I think for me, it's just getting the knowledge of what lacrosse is in the area. I think that's been the struggle. Even as a school counselor, I was at a charter school up in North Lafayette, and I would tell students, or we would have like our college day for Thursday, and I would have my Muhlenberg lacrosse shirt, and kids would be like, what is that? What sport is that? It's only known as like baseball, football, maybe ice hockey if there's some people that play here. But it's been more of the conversations. It's hard to have students understand what the concept of the sport is, even though we know generational, this is all from the oldest sport. But I think for women's lacrosse is just getting girls to understand that there is a sport, there's an option that isn't just necessarily just soccer, tennis. I mean, we don't even have field hockey down here, which I also am like, oh. So to me, it's getting the understanding of what women's lacrosse is, as well as also what the sport is. And even if you go to Dick's Sporting Goods, like there's two sticks, but if you don't know what they are, you're getting, ooh, oh, am I getting the girl stick, or what's the difference between either or? And so I know with the Youngsville Lacrosse League, which is what Coach Casey has really pushed with other coaches, we did have some girls and actually buy a girl stick, and I was able to show them my stick and be the higher, more improved sticks than the ones that you find in the stores. But to me, that's the challenge, is just getting the knowledge out there and know that there is another sport that is an option that is physical, but not to the point of, I think for when we look at men's lacrosse, you see them do a little bit more racking and all the equipment on them. But for girls, there's still, I still hold it to my head, and I tell my like even my students, former students, and also just the girls that play, women's lacrosse is like poetry. I was, my high school coach said that, she's like, it's women who play a sport that it's finesse. And to me, that's literally what you see. Even when you watch the professional women's, like, you see the finesse, how quickly it goes. So I just hope to keep pushing that and getting more girls involved. And we had a parent meeting last night. We had some more girls show up, whether they're going to be managers or get them more excited to be a part of the girls program. But we do need to be able to explore that in gym class, and making sure that they know that there's other options, because I think sometimes girls see men's as a very intimidating sport, so they're like, oh no, I don't want to. But there's still so many great parts to men's lacrosse as well too. But I would like to branch out eventually one day, and push more. But I think it's just the exposure.
Yeah. Well, if women's lacrosse is poetry, then men's lacrosse is probably slam poetry.
Probably, yeah. I just still remember that from high school. I remember that my gym coach, who's it was in middle school. She said, I think it was, yeah, because our high school was 7th through 12th, so I consider that high school. But it was our gym teacher that said it, and I was like, I always still remember that because it is true.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right. And with your experience in the girls game and how that works, especially with it being a finesse game, you are now the offensive coordinator or the offensive coach for the Southside High School boys team. And so that there's probably a lot of that technique that flows. I mean, the footwork can still be the same. The stick work is so much more advanced, I think, on the girls' side, because it takes, like you said, it takes a lot of finesse to control the ball.
Yeah.
So what kind of things have you been able to see transfer from the girls' side to the boys' side?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones that I always say is moving the ball. You see it in the college level, especially. We try to really coach the offense to watch video. Like, that's the only way they're going to learn. So a lot of our players, as Coach Casey has said on this podcast, they just picked up the stick last year. We have some that just picked it up this summer in July, and they're already catching and throwing. But the catching and throwing gets to a point where you can stand and catch, but now it's moving your feet. How do you place your feet? And so with women's lacrosse, the same thing is that you're going to do dodge rolls. You're going to be able to do making sure that you're seeing both sides. We always say, kind of joke around, we're saying, like, you put your head on a swivel. And a lot of that does come with boys and girls. You have to be able to look left, right, who's going to be your support. You got to know how to throw righty and lefty. Like, it's not just one dominant hand. And even just we've been doing some practices recently too, and we're just feeding, just basic feeding. And I said, if we're going to have feeders, we got to work on the foot, because if you stand there, you're going to throw, it's going to go right into the defense stick. With men's and women's, I think it's always been the foot. I think it's drilled in my head almost. I think PTSD from coach in college. Always move your feet. Move your feet. I don't care if you're standing and not moving because you're not useful. Keep your feet moving. So I think that's a huge part. And then cutting. I mean, there's a lot in between the girls and boys. Even though you have an arc in girls lacrosse and you have a box in boys, there's still a different. There's similarities where you got to move. You got to shift. You're going to try to lose your defender. Be a decoy. Do anything that you can to be useful on the field. So to me, a lot of the basic 101s of footwork, moving, passing is in both games. So I see it all the time, but some of my players are like, And then I'm like, I'm telling you got to move your feet. And sometimes I become their little dummy defender. I'm like, let's add it in. I'm gonna be your defender. Like you can't just stand there. And some of them get a little nervous because they're like, oh no, now you added something. I'm like, well, here's real game situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the game is played on the run. I mean, it's
Yeah.
that simple. If you're practicing standing still, then that's not an effective practice technique at all.
Mm-mm.
Sure, it might be where you start, right? If you don't know how to throw and catch, you're probably going to be stationary to start. But at some point, you have to start moving your feet. And we would harp on our players all the time, probably just like you do. Like, don't practice, don't warm up standing still. Warm up moving your feet. You should constantly be moving your feet. And then the same thing, offensive. Even when you're running an offensive drill, it's like don't stop once you get rid of the ball. The very next thing becomes off ball movement. You have to do something different, whether it's you're following your pass, you're setting a pick, you're moving behind the goal, you're switching player, whatever it has to be, but you should never be standing still. So I'm really glad you brought that up. I think a lot of players, early on, they miss that part. If you can't throw and catch on the run, I mean, you're light years behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where the girls game, I think, really, your experience in the girls game really comes in handy because they have to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's only until you, and I mean that's the same thing with plays. Like when you start getting to plays, yeah, you set yourselves up where you need to be, but you got to be useful. You can't just stand there, and I think that's always been any coach's nightmare is that someone just stands there and then they become the bad part of the play, and they're not even helping or contributing because now that defender is like, hey, you're not worthy of looking at, so I'm going to go and now double team, and now they puts your teammate into trouble, and then you're just still standing there, not finding the area that you could be open to help them, and we call it the help.
Yeah.
So
the idea of, what am I trying to say here? The idea of trying to run an offense or even defense without moving the ball or without moving your feet, is archaic. I mean, it's never going to work. Have you had any issues with any of the players or parents or other coaches, approaching it with the attitude like, well, you don't know the boys game? Has that ever come up at all?
not well.
You're laughing a little bit.
Yeah, because like to me, it's kind of so when I started at Southside, one of the things I really was transparent with the boys in the beginning was I'm learning with you. That's just me being who I am. I never want to sugarcoat, but I do have the foundationals. When I talk to them about ground balls, how important that is when it comes to making sure that you catch, like you're seeing what you see. I mean, those are foundational within just the game of lacrosse. But I was like, I can help you with that, but I'm also learning with you. And to me, I think I was always a visual athlete. I like to see it be part of the play instead of seeing it on a board. I'll be honest, like I was never that kind of person that could coach would write it on the board and I'm like, you got to walk me through it, because until I can actually like walk through the play. So I know there's some times where I would see the plays too, and then that's where I would help with the boys and girls actually, because we had 2 girls last year play with us. And just allow them, like, this is where you're going to be placed. And this is where you also, like, if the play doesn't go right, you got to figure out another way. I honestly, when it came to coaches and then the parents, I didn't really get that. I think it was a hesitation of maybe some of the players, because maybe I was very blunt with them of like, hey, I'm learning with you. But I think they started becoming a little bit more serious when we started actually playing games and got into the season, that I was like, this is where you need to change, or this is where you need to figure out where to place yourself, or next time I need you to go for that ground ball a little bit like harder. So I think they started, the respect I think was there, but I think the respect for the game got a little bit better as the school like the season went on. But I definitely think there was some hesitation, but I don't know if I put that on myself because I was like, hey, I'm with you all. So
well, I think one thing, and you sort of highlighted it, one thing that any new coach or even a new coach coming into a program with some experience, it's important to address that elephant in the room right up front. Hey, I'm I might be an experienced coach, but I'm inexperienced in this program, or I might be, I might be a really good youth coach, but I've never coached high school. We're going to learn together. At some point, that coach is going to have to say to those players, your way is no longer working. You need to
Mm-hmm.
try it my way. And the only way you're going to get them to hit that I believe button and go
Mm-hmm.
with you is if you've taken the time to earn their respect. You are not going to be given respect on day one.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I mean, they're gonna call you coach. They're gonna listen to the whistle. But in the huddle, and this is not for you. This is for anybody. This is
Oh,
just
yeah.
any coach out there. You don't get it right away. It's no matter who you are. Short of if you're a lacrosse legend potentially maybe, but you're coming into coach high school anywhere, and you're the new guy or the new girl. You need to earn that respect, and the way to do that is just consistency, understanding, meet them at their level, and then bring them up to yours. Right? There's something to be said for going to their side of the street and being like, hey, I see your perspective, now come with me to my side of the
Yeah.
street. So that's really good. I'm glad you brought that up. What kind of goals do you have for your offense this year, your high school boys?
Yeah, actually, because we've been doing kind of like the unofficial practices right now, we're doing that on Mondays and Thursdays, and it's been fun because I actually was part of a drill with some of because we were down, we were odd number, and we were doing some catching and throwing, and I think it's always fun because I can still throw lefty and I can still throw righty, still great. So I always it's always kind of fun to be able to show them like, hey, I still got my skills. And to me, one of the biggest things for us is my biggest, I think, as moving the feet, making sure we're pinpointing the players that need those little tweaks when it comes to, just like I said, like the feeding was a big part that we did on Monday. And I was like, we got to move your feet. If you want to be a good feeder, we're going to have to like zone in on this. And we're kind of, again, assessing who's going to be where, what positions are going to be the best. So we're still kind of developing that. But my goal is this year for sure is making sure with Coach Casey is like we dominate on the offense. We struggled with that last year. We had some players that did dominate, not using some of their players, and that's part of like the learning pains of any lacrosse program. There's going to be one person that is going out of their way, doing all the skill sets and stuff like that. But you got to look at your teammates, and even just because you might not trust them because they might not catch it. But at the same time, the only way they're going to learn is to be able to catch and throw. And if they screw up, okay, well, like do it again, like try again. The other thing too, I think for me in particular as a coach watching, I noticed and with this team this year is like a lot of the players took a lot to heart, and a lot of them didn't know how to let go. If they screwed up on a play, they were just get in their brain, and then of course they had some verbal expressions, or they would be upset with their lacrosse stick hitting it on the grass. And I mean, that's part of where I love the passion, and I love the fact that our guys were really into the sport and wanting to be perfect. And this was just something that they need to understand going into this year, is that I want them to let it go earlier. I think that's one of the things I love about the book too, is like getting into this mentality of stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Part of this game is high school. It's supposed to be fun. And I think sometimes some students don't see it as fun anymore. They see it as a challenge and they want to be perfect. And I don't know if that's external to maybe personal life as well too, but they just couldn't, some of them just couldn't get out of their heads. And I'm like, well, if you lost that, if that person got you checked, the ball is on the ground, then fight for it. Fight for it. Let them like keep going, because you can get that ball right back and then prove and then decide to shoot. So I think for our team this year is I think I want to change that mental mentality of making sure that they have to realize they got to live in the moment. If you screw up, prove it to them, prove it within yourself that you can do it, like you can do better, or fight for that ground ball, or get that check back and make sure that you get that ball back. And I think that is the biggest piece that I want to bring to the offense, especially because I think they were all tough on themselves, and the trusting part of you got to trust your teammate on the left and right, and if they screw up, then you know what, guess what, you're going to help them get that ground ball. So I think that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, it's the difference between being results oriented and execution oriented. If you're results oriented, then things can go wrong along the way, but if you get the end result that you want, then you can go, it
Yeah.
didn't quite work right, you still got the result you wanted. If you're execution focused and you're so worried about the little details and getting it right that you may miss the forest for the trees, you may miss the big picture. It's like, well, yeah, that kid, he dropped the ball after he caught it, but he caught it. Like, he hadn't caught a pass in the last 4 or 5 reps, but he caught it, and now he got hit and dropped it. Okay, well, that's still improvement. If you're going
Yeah.
to focus only on the drop and not the fact that he improved and maybe he gets the ball back, it's the difference between being results oriented and execution oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I told you before we started this that I had spent some time in the military. I spent 20 years in the military. One of the things that we always said, sort of a mantra that we had when we were planning a combat mission was, no matter how good we planned it, we would
Mm-hmm.
say the enemy always gets a vote. And obviously lacrosse is not life or death, but
For some of them,
you might think so, but the point of it is, like, we can go into the game, we can go into practice with the best laid plans. It's going to be a perfect strategy. But if we don't account for the guys on the other side of the field, if we don't understand that they also have a vote in the outcome of this game, and it's probably exactly opposite of ours,
mm-hmm.
we need to understand, like, not everything's going to be perfect. And like you said, the sooner we can let it go, the sooner we can get back in the fight.
Correct.
I mean, if you're going to sit there and worry about a mistake that happened a minute ago, well, that's a minute. That's long gone. There's only 48 minutes in this game at the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
So you just wasted 1/48 of the time by sitting there sulking about this play that you screwed up. And now that your brain is thinking about this mistake, what do you think is going to happen next? You're going to make another mistake, and now you're going to get even further down that hole. So yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. It's so important. Just, you make mistakes, big deal. Let it go. Go get the ball, right? I mean, that's the name of the game. So let's shift gears. I want to talk about the college admissions process, because you're an expert in that area. And a lot of our players, even if they end up not playing lacrosse, we find, it's just that type of student ends up going to college. So imagine I'm a high school junior. I'm starting my junior year. I'm hovering around a 3.0 GPA. I'm in my third year of high school lacrosse, or I'm starting my third year of high school lacrosse. I'm not going to be an All-American. I'm probably not going to be all district. Maybe I'm a starter. I'm taking one honors class. What kind of things should I be looking for? What would you tell me? What would you tell my parents? Like, how do I do this? Where do I go to school? What do I do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot when it comes to conversations with families. Yes, the child is going to school. They're the one going to college, not mom and dad. However, we also have the conversation of the financial, because as we know, college is not cheap, depending on where students are looking. And I think one of the things is that, is lacrosse an option? Is sport an option? Is it not? I used to tell students when I was even like the big football guys, I would have interviews with them and I would say, God forbid you had an ACL tear or you got injured, would you still like the campus? Because things happen. I mean, I got injured my freshman year at the last game, and it turned into, I thought it was a meniscus tear, but it turned out that it was just horrible. Honestly, it was arthritis that was like really, really bad. But I still played back. And I mean, that's just a wear and tear, not knowing about lifting. And in high school, we weren't taught that at the time. And when I was in high school, I'm so thankful that girls are weightlifting and stuff in high school now and learning all of that. But I think for those conversations with those juniors, especially now, I would say even for ninth grade, it's not too late to start talking about college. You got to start at an early age. I know when it comes down to families like, oh gosh, ninth grade, that's just too early. No, you got to, because depending on what the track is for a student. So if the student is looking at one of the top 20 schools in the nation versus maybe just a local college in the area, you got to know what that transcript's going to look like. You got to know what kind of classes. So a lot of colleges, and I talk this in my Instagram, I have a bunch of little tidbits that I do share. Colleges are going to look at the context of your high school. They're going to get to know the profile, meaning like what kind of classes are offered, what, where are students applying to college, where are the ACT ranges or the SAT ranges. But if you, for example, like if your school had APs and dual enrollment courses, but you're only taking a honors class junior year, when you're looking at a very competitive college, wherever that might be, I'm going to throw this out because I worked at Duke. So I worked in their admissions undergrad. Let's say a student wants to go there, maybe not to play lacrosse because that's D1, but you want to be in that prestigiousness of a school. Well, you're going to have to look, okay, one honors class when your school offers APs and duals, and by junior year, that's going to be, you're not really putting yourself as a very competitive student. So you want to add rigor. What is that rigor? But then there's a balance act, because what is going to be too much for a student that they're burning out? They're exhausted, they're not sleeping at night, they're stressing over their grades drop, and then they're also playing a sport and 2 other travel teams, who knows? So there's so many contexts and nuances with all the processes. But I think for anyone is that, if you're going to play lacrosse, figure out, is that going to be D1 to D3? If you're going to look to be only just playing for fun, like I went D3 because there was no women's professional team. I was getting recruited D1. And honestly, I was like, I love the sport, but I don't want to live and breathe it because I'm not going to go professional. So now I'm like, of course, now that the women's professional is out, I'm like, I should be born way earlier. But I think
missed it.
I know. And so to me, it's just, there's those pieces of, what does that look like? So right now, September 1, coaches can now reach out to juniors. They can start doing those conversations. So students need to figure out, who are they sending filling out the recruiting questionnaires for athletics, whether it can be lacrosse, it could be other sports, but that's where they're going to have to start. And then from there, figure out, what is the interest major? Because I will say, when it comes to transcripts, I have a student right now who I'm working with that's looking at engineering. He's a senior. He doesn't have pre-calc on his transcript. And a lot of those colleges are looking for pre-calc. They want to see at least calculus, AB. I mean, depending on circumstances, is like you need to have those things. So that knowledge from my end is like, I know that because I worked at Manhattan. Now it's Manhattan University, but there was number one is their engineering program. So I was educated to understand the engineering, whether those requirements are, get into those programs. So I think to kind of bring this all back, I mean, when it comes down to a profile that you just said, it comes with so many more contexts and so much more of what the student's looking for, and also kind of navigating what that looks like. Because I think also too, that I find, and not just necessarily Louisiana has, most states have those state universities. They have those scholarships within the state. They want students to be in locally, but a lot of families don't realize that there are some universities, especially in the Northeast, Midwest, that are dying to have kids from the South, and they have scholarships. They can work out with the financial aid offices. A family can put in an appeal to add for more money. And it's all these conversations that families don't realize, and I think some of our kids get nervous because I think some of them are homebodies, and that's totally okay. I think they like to be close to home, knowing that they can drive home really quickly, or they can, financially, it might be just easier to be at home. But I think it's always the fun part, spread out your wings when you can. And if the financial package is there, and the possibility of kind of, a student finding themselves is really awesome. And that's what I always hope as a consultant now, is really having students be able to spread those wings and not be so scared to be like, okay, I'm leaving the state. Like if I leave the state, I'm leaving mom, dad, but it's okay. Like you have everyone else in the school, in that college, is doing the same thing. They're all coming from all different areas. They're experiencing very similar feelings. But like I say, it's a whole process, and I wish I had a direct answer for you. But I think it's just so much within just a context of a student's profile. And I think that's my favorite part of what my job and being in admissions and being on the other side of the desk as a school counselor, like there's just so many things that makes a kid unique and also who they are. And I think one advice I can give a family and a student right now is do not compare yourself to your peer. That is one of my biggest things that I struggle, even as a school counselor. I worked as a middle school counselor, as a high school counselor. Kids have a tendency that they will look at their peers' ACT score, they'll look at their GPA, they'll look at their kind of classes. And I have to say, why are you looking at them? They're not you. They're not you. They're not the ones that might have struggles with academics. Maybe you have family responsibilities at home that they don't have. They might have the option to be able to do travel teams, but you don't. But don't see it that as you're less than because of your circumstance, because everyone in colleges will always say this. They take in context everything within an application and all the things that they say a student puts in their application and puts it into context. So I really would say for families, please don't compare yourself to a kid that went to private school versus a public school, the kid who took 5 APs and the student that has only 2 honors. Every student is unique and they got to do their own way, but also at the same time with support, being able to kind of make sure that their message is out there to colleges and making sure that they represent themselves in the best way possible for college admissions.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up something I thought was really important too, and that's the fact that, college is expensive and getting to that level is expensive, and state schools offer the ability for, like an in-state student to have better tuition rates. There are some programs out there where, I know there's on the Western states like Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Colorado, they have a tuition that if you're, say you're a student in Washington and you want to go to school in Colorado or something like that, well, you're probably not going to get in-state tuition, but they have a program where you might qualify for like 125% of the in-state tuition rate. So it's still cheaper than out-of-state tuition and just slightly higher than regular in-state tuition. So those are options. It's important for the kids to understand that. And one thing I told my boys is like apply for every scholarship. If you don't apply, you're telling yourself no. If you apply and they tell you no, that's different, right? At least you put forth the effort. You never know what you're going to get. Case in point, my son received it's something small. It's like $1,000 grant from, a military officers association because, I'm a retired military veteran. And had he not applied for that, that money would never have been it, but that saved him and me $1,000. And especially for vets, you have the GI Bill, you have post 9/11 bill, you've got the Yellow Ribbon program, you've got dependents education assistance. A lot of schools will offer in-state tuition for dependents of veterans or veterans. So there are a lot of options. And if you just explore it a little bit, those resources are out there. And, talking to somebody like you, for example, to help point them in the right direction could be huge, because that's probably one of the things I hear the most is like, well, college is too expensive, I can't go. Well, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know? Maybe you're, so like a D3 school is probably not going to give, well, in fact, they're definitely not going to give you
I was going to say
athletic scholarship.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. They don't have any.
Yeah.
And even a D2 school for lacrosse, they're probably really limited. They might have a total of 4 full scholarships. And so a lot of times the coaches will divide those up between players, that might need it. But maybe the private school tuition isn't as out of reach as you think, because, maybe your academics are going to kind of qualify you for that presidential level scholarship. The point is there's so many options out there, and getting a trusted expert like you, in their corner is going to be huge.
Yeah. And like I say, there's just so much out there. And I think that's what scares families is you said it, where do I begin? And I think that is it's the number one challenge, and families freak out. It's not consulting down here is not something that I saw a lot. You see a lot of educational consultants within the Northeast, Midwest, out in California as well too. So you have a bunch of those, but like down here in Louisiana, It's newer. It's not something, so it's interesting when I tell people what I do and what I can help them with. There is hesitation. They're like, well, I'm not sure what exactly you mean. And until I'm able to share, like, I can help and guide and support you all through this process and make it not as anxiety driven, because I'm going to say it, parents are just as anxious as the child, because the child, I think for a lot of students is, am I even going to get in college? Like, college is that sometimes for them, like, it's whether that, I guess that friend group or the popularity group decided to like you or not. And that's like college. Whereas like, if I don't get accepted, then man, I'm like, they didn't like me. And it's not about them not liking you. It's just how depending on the colleges, it was maybe something within the class they might have fulfilled. And there's thousands of kids that apply. And that's where, the families need to understand is that I think for colleges, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I mean, for me, I went early decision knowing that Muhlenberg was my number one choice. I didn't think anything of it, but I also knew I was their number one recruit for lacrosse. Coach called me pretty much every day until I submitted, way back when it was paper still. But
your name was at the very top of that coach's whiteboard.
And I just remember I called her and I said, Coach, I ended up I mailed it in, and then bam, here came November, and I found out that I got in. And again, it was still nerve-wracking, even though I was a recruit. Like, I was still nervous. Would they still choose me? I had a backup plan. I was going to go to Hobart William Smith, was my second choice. Had that filled out, ready to go, just in case they didn't accept me. But I think that's also too, you got to have a balanced list. Like, kids need to understand is that there's a reason why I always say, like, the seesaw. You never want to have a seesaw that's totally off, where I want them to shoot for their dreams. Like, have that one school that they're really shooting for. They might be out of their reach. It doesn't hurt to apply, but you also have to be realistic too. So you have to make sure that you have that balanced list of like, okay, I got my reach school, but then I have some target schools, and then of course your safeties. And that's the best part about admissions. The only thing I would say for some students, I mean, you see it on the news all the time, which I cringe a little, but that's just me personally. This is my opinion, but I find kids who submit to like 22 colleges, every college costs a fee. Some of them are not cheap for the applications. And so to me, like, I think about the quantity is not better than the quality. And I'd rather them have a quality application, places that they really want to go to, instead of just submitting applications to everywhere. And that essay or that supplement essay is just like everyone else's. And the kid just has 22 colleges that they applied to, and they're just checking off, okay, no, didn't get in there, waitlisted, this, and it's like, I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. I'd rather have quality applications than quantity.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you. I think that's exactly the right answer. I don't think there's any issue at all with shooting for the moon. I think if you have a dream school, by all means, if it's, if it happens to be like in your case, you ended up working at Duke. Duke was a lot of kids' dream school. Oh, yeah. A lot of kids want to go there. If you never apply, if you never submit that application, the answer is no, for sure. 100% chance it's no. But if you apply, at least you put it in somebody else's hands temporarily, and you just make that application look as good as you can. But the one thing that does not change for every single athlete who wants to go to college is that when that coach is interested, what is the one question they're going to ask? The very first one. It's, what are your grades like? Yeah. I mean, they're going to want to know what kind of student you are, because they're not going to waste their time on you if you can't keep your grades up, because they can't use you.
Yeah. So. And I'll add in this. This is one thing I always tell seniors. Until the day you walk graduation, that's when you give up on your grades. Like, that's when you can relax. One of my biggest pet peeves is the athletes that are like, okay, I got the commitment letter, or I was able to sign. Coaches are still looking. They're still looking at those grades. Colleges are asking for that for quarter one. They're looking at the mid-year grades. I know my coach looked at my grades even my senior year. Like, it did not matter that I was admitted right before Thanksgiving. She was still checking in on my grades. And I think that's the one thing that I saw that in high school. There was a young man who was going to go to Yale. And he ended up for soccer, and he had a full ride, everything, and he never showed up to school. Turned out he got his application rescinded, his admission, I should say. And it was horrible. And he had to show up to class now, and he had no scholarship. He was not going to Yale. So it's like, those are the things that students need to understand. And that's even not even for non-athletes. If you're not even, maybe you're instrumental, maybe you're going for dance, maybe you're going for band or whatever it might be, schools are still looking, and admissions, college admissions offices are still looking as well too. They want that final transcript. They want to see solid grades. If you have that F, that D, I mean, I get nervous. I mean, that's my biggest thing that I can share to anyone, is that until school is officially over, you have that diploma in your hand, then you can relax. But you've got to keep pushing, even though with some of those seniors, I know senioritis starts kicking. I think more than anything, senioritis has gone sooner, in like early November for a lot of them. They start kind of like, oh, I'm okay, I submitted all my applications. But they got to keep working on those grades. I mean, sometimes it could also be for admissions reps, the decision of whether they take them off the wait list. Because if a student is still a solid kid, but let's say they had a B, and then they ended up getting straight A's in the midterm, that college may look at that application and say, actually, you know what, we have a student that was really interested, and now we're going to look at a wait list, and we know that they finished off really strong in mid-year. So, hey, we're going to give them an admissions decision come June. So here comes a kid that didn't think that maybe they were going to USC, and now they're going to USC because they got off the wait list. So that's a big thing that students don't realize too, is that, you're still an option if you're even on a wait list. Yes, it's a little slimmer for some colleges, but hey, you're still an option until those grades are official, final on that transcript. Keep working hard.
I think that is the perfect way to wrap this up. Students need to understand that the finish line is the finish line. You don't stop sprinting until you get there.
Yeah.
That's critical. I hope everyone, listens and takes action on that as well, because like you said, those things happen all the time. Students may apply to 4 or 5 different schools, get accepted into 4 or 5 different schools, and they have to pick one. And so now, the backup becomes the primary when that other student decides not to go there. So yeah, never give up on that. Never stop sprinting, wait till the finish line to catch your breath. Coach, what are your final thoughts as you head into this season, this school year? You head into the lacrosse season, the school year. What are you thinking for your players, for your students?
Yeah, well, I'm just excited. We have new faces. I think as Coach Casey has imagined for Youngsville, Southside lacrosse, we're excited. We're looking at championship this year. For D2, I think we have no other option. So I think that's our goal. But honestly, I want more than anything else is the students and players to just have fun. I think that's part of the game. The game, I think sometimes we get so serious with sports and, college, wanting to play at the collegiate level. But I think in the end, it's always about having fun. I always had fun. It was my 2 hours of enjoyment. I didn't have to worry about grades. I didn't have to worry about social life. I didn't have to worry about other things in life. But I think it's just fun. Just enjoy, have fun. I think that's the biggest thing for any athlete out there. Please just enjoy, have fun playing, and have fun. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there you have it. Keep your grades up, sprint to the finish line, and have fun.
Yep.
I love it. Coach, how do kids reach out to you if they want to talk to you about college, if they want to talk to you about lacrosse? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I actually have I have my website, and we can put that on. But
I'll drop it in the notes.
Yeah, drop in the notes, and then if they want to, my Instagram has a bunch of information with my company, so it's ACC_group. And that's a great way. I already have stuff about financial aid. There's stuff about transcripts, talking about summer. So it's a really great resource, but they can reach me, DM me. I'm always accepting clients as well too. So whether that's 9th grade to 12th grade, if there's some 12th graders out there that are freaking out, not knowing where to begin with college, please reach out to me ASAP, because November 1 is that first deadline for college applications. So it's coming up.
Well, there you go. Get it in, students. Parents, get on your students to get it in.
Yes.
Ruth, thank you so much for doing this with me. This has been a lot of fun. I look forward to checking in with you later on throughout the season and see how things are going.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was so nice meeting you as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's been a pleasure. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in once again. We're always here to help if we can. As always, you can find me or First City Lax at First City Lax on any of the social medias. And then you can find us on YouTube and anywhere you listen to your podcast. Of course, you can track us down. You can also email me at jon@firstcitylax.com. That's JON at 1STCITYLAX.com. Last thing, get your reps in, be a good human. See everybody later.
If you like what you hear, drop us a like and follow wherever you downloaded this podcast from, and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at First City Lax. Check back every week for more content. Thank you for being a part of the First City Lacrosse podcast.